Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge excuse me if I get this wrong, the Gumbayangir people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet here today, as well as elders both past and present. I am an Indigenous Environmental Health Officer. I've mainly been employed with 2 local government councils in New South Wales to inspect on-site sewage management systems. I'm sure you can imagine that the opportunity to work with Aboriginal people was very attractive compared to inspecting 12,000 septic systems as a compliance officer. It's not my role in council to be involved in helping to obtain these grants or specifically work on Aboriginal health issues, but I'm passionate about helping my people and the environment, and I've had some support from my managers to do so it's been great to do that. I'm here to talk to you all today about the New South Wales Environmental Health Protection, the EPA, Aboriginal Lands Cleanup Grants, or the ALCUP grants, as you mentioned. I've been involved in 2 of these grants, one with Bega and one with Port Macquarie. For those of you who don't know about these grants, I'll just give you a quick overview of what they are and what they've achieved in New South Wales, with a small insight in how you can go about getting one of these grants. So, Bega's right down the bottom of New South Wales, and Port Macquarie is just 2 hours down the road, as most of you probably know. So what are these grants? These grants are annual grants of money that are provided by the EPA to New South Wales local Aboriginal Lands Councils, who can work in collaboration with local councils in order to clean up illegally dumped rubbish on local Aboriginal Lands Council owned lands. ALCUP is a waste less, recycle more initiative funded by the Waste Levy in New South Wales. Annually $200,000 is provided across the state, with up to $50,000 being available per Lands Council upon a successful application following submissions of interest to the New South Wales EPA. Since 2005, you can see $1.7 million has been provided to the New South Wales LAUCs for this purpose. Almost 6,500 tonnes of materials have been cleaned up, of which over 3,000 tonnes of materials have been reused. Over 1,500 tonnes of waste has been disposed to landfills, which includes almost 550 tonnes of asbestos. A total of 1,722 tonnes of materials have been recycled, among with 35 car bodies. I think that deserves a round of applause for all the hard work that goes into these projects. Thinking about taking a project, if you do work for a council and you want to get involved, think about taking a project like this to your communities. If there is a problem with illegal dumping, check with your respective environmental agencies if grants are available. They're not actually available this round, they're closed, but next year you can apply. So the objectives of the grants is not only to clean up illegally dumped rubbish on the Aboriginal owned land, but also to implement prevention measures to stop further dumping, provide infrastructure that the LAUC may not have or be able to implement or afford, educate the broader community, and also offer training opportunities to Aboriginal people. It's to encourage enforcement and regular patrols by the council and the Lands Council, and foster and develop productive working partnerships with local councils, community groups and local businesses. This is the land from the first grant I worked on, down in the Bega Valley Shire. It's around 45 hectares of land. On the main road there are 2 access points to this land, and it was used by local people as a walking track, and people rode their horses in there, so the Lands Council didn't want to stop this from occurring, so we put up barriers, but just to stop the vehicles getting in. It's just down the road from a tip, so people would come in, hide behind the tea tree and dump their rubbish. This was going on for years. A couple of vehicles had been dumped on this land as well. We used over 30 photos for the grant proposal, and I'll talk a bit more about the importance of these photos later on. This was once a car. You can see it's been there for quite some time. So we basically collected the rubbish into piles, and that could be recycled and taken to the tip. It's pretty important to do a thorough survey of the land. This rubbish here that's being collected was actually missed during the initial survey of the land, because it was located in dense bushland that we didn't think had been dumped on. It's very important to make sure that you've covered everything rather than asking the EPA for money later on for something that you hadn't factored into your grant. So this photo shows the workers, one of my work colleagues at the time, helping to clean up the rubbish. There was a lot of tea tree on the block, so the rubbish could actually be quite difficult to find, especially with only the few workers that we had to do the work. We had 6 local Aboriginal Lands Council employees employed through the grant to be able to do this work as well. So you see the before, during and after. This was good evidence to show the EPA that we'd actually removed rubbish from the land. Quite often it was all lots of small pieces, so we sort of collated into piles and just show that it was gone later on, rather than heaps of photos of one tiny little bit of rubbish. So during the Bega clean-up grant, we had 2 tonnes of rubbish reused and 193 tonnes recycled. Almost $16,000 was provided for this grant, which was a pretty small amount of money considering the rubbish that was removed. Bega Council provided $2,000 towards the tip fees, which only $1,000 was needed in the end. We put up 2 sturdy gates that were actually made by an Aboriginal boilermaker, as well as signage, bollards erected at the entrances. Other grants I know of have used fences, boulders, soil mounds as a mean of deterrence. And the relationship between the Lands Council and Bega Council was strengthened during this grant. After I left, it was good to see that they then carried on to get a $32,000 grant. So it was good that it wasn't just sort of me pushing it. After I'd sort of started it, the council carried on. This is me, stoked at getting the rubbish off the land. My only regret from this grant is I don't think that we celebrated or promoted the work that we did enough to deter further dumping in the area. So I now move on to the Biripi Local Aboriginal Lands Council, which was the Christmas Bells Plains Clean-up Grant. Since moving away from Bega, I wanted to continue this work, and my new manager was very supportive of me to be able to do this again. So it was very important to consult with all of the Aboriginal Lands Councils in the area. We had 3 on the far south coast, and I asked them all did they want to be a part, and for certain reasons not all of them could. It was the same in Port Macquarie region. We had 2 local Aboriginal Lands Councils, and only one of them was able to take this on. We're hoping to do further surveys with the other lands councils to see if they've got a dumping problem as well. So hopefully in the future we can do some more grants with them. So the Biripi Lands Council was successful with their grant to the EPA. This is the land that we worked on. It's just outside of Port Macquarie as you come in on the southern side. So easily accessible by dumpers to just duck out of town and dump onto this land as well. The Lands Council before the grant were very fortunate that they had actually done some work themselves and put up some sturdy gates to be able to stop further dumping. So pretty much what was there was all we had to deal with. It didn't continue during the grant. We've got a population of over 50,000 people in Port Macquarie, so it can be an issue. So although you put up gates and lock them up, people still want to try and access this land. We've had one guy in Bega, he, as soon as we got a gate up, reversed his ute into it and didn't actually get through the gate, but smashed all his tail lights up attempting to get into the land. I mean, what an idiot. And someone actually cut the lock on this property in Port Macquarie as well. So we set up some cameras, and it was just lucky that we actually turned up to remove the camera and a bloke had just gone through the gate, so we were able to question him about what he was doing on the land, and I won't go into that. We ended up getting the Lands Council involved, and he was removed from the land because he was staying on there illegally. So we've got a new lock on the gates now. So this shows some of the rubbish that we came across on the land. Builder's waste, broken windows. Some of this stuff could be hard to clean up for the workers. Lots of small shards of glass. The bag of cans there that I think was probably left by some people that were living on the land at the time, and it was good of them to put it in a bag for us to remove. That was easy. I don't know if you can see it, there's a mattress there. Some of this rubbish, like the Bega one, it had been there for years, so it was hard to locate some of it. And another two photos here showing that the vegetation covering the rubbish, plastic pots, beer bottles and cans. Also had a guy who had his bees on the land as well, and the Lands Council didn't know about this. So we asked him we had to track him down through DPI and move those bees on. He did give the Lands Council a couple of jars of honey though for allowing them. There were broken pieces of potential asbestos that had to be tested to see if the asbestos removalists were required. Council had it tested. The EPA didn't pay for the testing during the grants, so Council came on board there and tested it because the Lands Council didn't have the money to do it. We had to get 3 quotes for the asbestos as well. The removal companies, they varied in price from $20,000 we got quoted to just a few $100s. In the end, it turned out not to be asbestos, which was good. This is the northern end of the site. This is located right on the edge of the road, so cars can just pull over and dump rubbish here because it's council maintained this bit, and the Lands Council land is just off to the edge of it and has a gate, so they could no longer get on the land, so people just pull up and dump on the side of the road. We did want to get some signage here. It was unfortunate. The Lands Council were in charge of getting the signage and didn't actually get it done, so we had to give that money back to the EPA in the end. But who knows, in the future council might come to the party because we have to clean it up all the time, and we might put some signs up there ourselves. Yep, this is the sort of stuff that gets dumped there. The whippersnippers, bikes, old bodyboards, tyres. This was some original signage that was on the land. This was to be removed and some new signs put in, as I said. It's old now, and these people who put the signage up aren't actually associated with the land anymore. So we've left the signage there because it's better than nothing. So some of the challenges to overcome. In both the grants I've had, there have been challenges. It's not all easy going. We're both really busy, and the council as well as the Lands Council have all got our own priorities. So the grants go for 12 months, but in the end I think this one took us about 18 months to complete, and the EPA were pretty supportive of us, allowing us to have an extension to get stuff finished. It's amazing how quickly it happens when you do get the workers working. Go from a trash site to looking how it should in a matter of weeks. It's great. So you need to think about, is there any in-kind support? Where might you get the support? Does the Lands Council have the workers to undertake the project? Is machinery required? Can it access the site? There can be community disputes as well within Aboriginal communities. And do you need to be made aware of them, or can they be addressed? We had a change of management with the Beagle. That didn't seem to affect the grant too much because the new person that came in, I guess, wanted to support it as well, so there wasn't too many stumbling hurdles there to get over. There might not be an Indigenous position held at the council, and this can be a vital link for the two organisations. Not everybody, I guess, may feel like they can approach a Lands Council, but don't be scared. Go for it, I say. As I said before, yeah, we've both got other duties that we need to do. It's important for both parties to respect their cultures, and to not do so can be detrimental to fostering the relationships between the Lands Council and the council. And safety is a priority for these work sites as well, so ensuring that there's toolbox talks are given by a site supervisor, and that personal protective equipment is also made available. This can be bought through the grant as well. One of the hardest things I had during the grant was finding a size 3XL glove for a guy who had huge hands. And then when he got them, he left them on site and they were stolen. Some of the things that can go wrong, misunderstandings between stakeholders. Whose money is it? Poor management of the grant money, not budgeting correctly. Have we factored everything in? As I've mentioned before, property damage as well. So the money belongs to the Lands Council. I know that, I won't go into cases, but I know that previous grants, the money's been misspent and it's had to be paid back to the EPA. A $10,000 Christmas party is not something that the grant will pay for. As I mentioned before too, unforeseen costs can arise, so it's good to think of everything that may happen and try and factor that into your budget, because you don't want to end up not having enough money to actually do the work that you need to do. So some of the benefits, it can make a positive for the community. You can foster relationships between the stakeholders, increase community pride for the land. It enables training opportunities for Indigenous people and artists. I know some where they've actually used totem poles that have been created by Aboriginal workers to put on the site and try and bring that pride back into their land. Can broaden community awareness, protect country, and also no more rubbish dumped on Aboriginal-owned land. It can also raise cultural awareness and educational camps for Aboriginal children. Have we got time to go through recommendations? Yeah, I'll just go through some recommendations. I'd say put deterrence measures in place early. The quicker you can stop people from getting onto the land, the less you'll have to deal with later in the clean-up. Talk to your local Aboriginal Lands Councils and their communities about dumping. The local tips and recycling facilities available. Work towards employing more Aboriginal people in councils. Seek training opportunities for Aboriginal people to complement the grant. This is just one thing I had done for the workers. They don't get full-time employment out of it, so I guess giving them a certificate of appreciation for their work is something they can put in their resumes and make them feel proud of what they've done as well. Those flowers on that certificate are the Christmas bells, and I didn't see them the whole grant until I went to take some photos of the land, and I thought it's great to get them on the certificates for the guys. Just some recommended reference material if you're thinking about getting into it. I would definitely recommend looking up this stuff. We've got DVDs as well. I can show you how to run a successful grant. Thanks for listening.